And to be truthful, I just saw a picture of you, the only man standing out of all your homies that's dead, facing the rest of their life in prison. You really done made it, gang. You really done made it nowhere but in the same place, but you still alive.
Think about this for a second. A man who walked those same streets, who knew those same names, who broke bread with those same people, suddenly decided the world needed to know the truth. But here is the real question. Why now? Why, after all this silence, did King Yella choose this exact moment to blow the lid off O-Block? And more importantly, why is E-Dog's response sending shockwaves through every drill fan account on the internet right now? Because this is not just a beef. This is not just two men trading insults on social media. This is a full-scale information war where secrets that were supposed to stay buried are now front and center, and the people closest to King Von's legacy are caught right in the middle of it.
I'm speaking the truth. You niggas are speaking from emotions, right? Speaking because you don't like the way I said what I'm saying. What I'm saying about Chief Keef.
You need to stay right here, because by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why this story is not just trending. It is changing the entire narrative around O-Block, around King Von, and around the code of silence that Chicago drill was built on. Do not move. It gets deeper than you think. To understand why King Yella's expose hit the way it did, you have to go back, all the way back to the foundation of O-Block itself. O-Block, formerly known as Parkway Gardens on Chicago's South Side, is one of the most documented, most referenced locations in all of drill music history. It is the block that raised King Von, the block that gave birth to some of the most raw and visceral rap Chicago has ever produced. And for years, that block operated under an unspoken law. What happens in O-Block stays in O-Block.
Nobody in this world where I will even just go fight just to be fighting, or let a nigga clout up off me, or even be in a vicinity around me, and he don't have no money. He's broke, just like you're.
King Yella is not a stranger to that world. He is a Chicago rapper who has been embedded in the streets long enough to know names, know events, and know exactly which stories carry weight. For a long time, Yella kept a relatively measured distance from direct drama, dropping music, maintaining his presence, occasionally making statements that raised eyebrows but never truly detonated. That changed, reportedly, sometime in early 2025, when Yella began making a series of pointed comments across social media platforms that suggested he had information, specific, detailed, potentially damaging information, about what really went on inside O-Block's inner circle. But here is where it gets interesting. The timing of Yella's initial comments was not random. According to multiple sources within the Chicago drill community who spoke to various platforms, Yella's first wave of statements came just weeks after renewed attention fell on O-Block due to the ongoing legal proceedings connected to FBG Duck's murder. With court documents being referenced publicly, with names being spoken that had been off-limits for years, and with the internet's collective memory suddenly sharpening, King Yella allegedly saw a window, and he walked straight through it. The first clip to go viral was a roughly 4-minute audio fragment, reportedly recorded during a live stream, in which Yella made what many listeners interpreted as a direct claim, that certain members of O-Block had been operating with information they never disclosed publicly. Information that allegedly related to coordination happening long before specific incidents that the public only heard about after the fact. He did not name everyone directly in that first clip, but he named enough. The clip hit 2 million views within 48 hours across reposts alone. By the time aggregator accounts like DJ Academic's platform and multiple Chicago-based commentary channels amplified it, the number had reportedly climbed past 5 million combined plays across platforms. That is not a rumor. That is a wildfire.
Young Yella, aka E-Dog from O-Block. I guess he was talking down on me and said something. I don't know. I'm gonna play it for y'all though. See what he talking about.
Now here is the twist. E-Dog, who has his own deep connection to the O-Block narrative and who has spoken publicly about street events in Chicago on multiple occasions, did not stay silent. Within what sources describe as approximately 72 hours of Yella's clip reaching peak saturation, E-Dog allegedly went live and addressed the statements directly. His response was not measured. It was not diplomatic. According to multiple people who watched the live in real time, E-Dog allegedly said something that stopped the internet cold. That King Yella was, in his words, telling half a story to look like the whole story, and that the parts Yella was leaving out were, allegedly, the most important parts of all. And this is the part that nobody is talking about. Because E-Dog's counter did not just push back against Yella's credibility. It allegedly introduced new names that had not come up in the original Yella statements. And in doing so, E-Dog may have inadvertently opened a door that neither side was fully prepared to walk through. Sources close to both camps, speaking anonymously to street commentary platforms, reportedly suggested that E-Dog's response was not entirely spontaneous. That there had allegedly been, in the days prior, back-channel conversations about whether a public rebuttal was the right move. And that someone, unnamed, but described as influential within the O-Block orbit, had reportedly urged E-Dog to stay quiet. He did not stay quiet. Stay right here because it gets worse. The fallout from that live was immediate and chaotic. Fan accounts began dissecting every word. Timestamps were clipped, screenshots were circulated, and within hours, two distinct camps had formed across social media. Those who believed King Yella was dropping facts the public deserved to hear, and those who believed he was running a calculated narrative designed to position himself at a moment when O-Block's defenses were lowest. The comment sections on every major drill account became digital battlegrounds. On one Chicago-focused Reddit thread alone, the discussion reportedly gathered over 3,000 comments in under 24 hours, with users citing specific lines from both Yella's clip and E-Dog's response and arguing point by point about what was real and what was embellishment. What nobody expected, and what allegedly escalated the entire situation from a social media moment into something that felt genuinely dangerous, was what happened next. Because after E-Dog's live, after the fan wars erupted, after the aggregator accounts had squeezed every click they could out of the initial exchange, King Yella allegedly came back. Not with another vague statement. Not with a subtle implication. But with what multiple sources described as a specific, targeted, and deeply personal claim about events surrounding King Von's inner circle. Events that, if true, would reframe parts of the O-Block story that fans have believed to be settled history. What was already a volatile exchange had allegedly become something far more calculated. And the question hanging over everything was not just whether Yella's claims were true. The question was, who stood to gain the most from all of this coming out right now? The second wave of this story is where the layers start peeling back in ways that even the most attentive followers of Chicago drill drama reportedly did not see coming. After Yella's alleged return with more specific claims, the response from the O-Block adjacent community was not uniform. It was fractured. And that fracture, sources suggest, revealed something far more significant than a simple beef between two men. It revealed that there are deep, long-standing internal disagreements about how King Von's legacy is being managed, protected, and in some cases, allegedly monetized. Let that sit for a moment. Because this is not just about who said what on a live stream. According to commentary from multiple respected voices within the Chicago drill journalism space, the underlying tension that Yella's statements tapped into had reportedly been building for well over a year before any of this became public. There are people allegedly within the broader O-Block circle who feel that the public narrative around King Von, the tributes, the posthumous releases, the brand partnerships, the documentary discussions, has not fully reflected the reality of what life on that block looked like, or who was truly responsible for what happened there. But here is where it gets interesting again. King Yella, according to sources, was not the first person to attempt to surface this tension. Reportedly, at least two other Chicago artists had, in the months prior, made veiled references in interviews and in music to what many interpreted as coded critiques of how Von's memory was being handled. Those references were largely ignored by mainstream drill coverage. They did not generate the same heat. Why? Because those artists did not have the same proximity to the specific events Yella was allegedly referencing. Yella, sources claim, had receipts. Or at least, he was positioning himself as someone who did. The receipts angle is critical. Because in the court of social media opinion, credibility is not just about what you say, it is about what you can prove, or what people believe you can prove. And the moment Yella's initial clip hit 5 million combined views, the pressure on him to produce something concrete, a screenshot, a recording, a document, anything tangible, began mounting in real time. comment sections filled with requests. Direct messages, reportedly, flooded his accounts. And Yella, allegedly, did not provide hard evidence in those first 72 hours. What he provided instead were more words, more claims, more pointed specifics delivered in the kind of confident, unshakable tone that either reads as absolute certainty or absolute performance, depending on which side of the argument you were already on. And this is the part that nobody is talking about. E-Dog's people, according to individuals familiar with the situation who spoke to at least one mid-sized Chicago commentary platform, were allegedly not sitting idle during this period. There are reports, unverified but persistent, that E-Dog's camp was actively collecting their own materials in the days between his first live response and what would become a second, significantly more detailed public statement. If those reports are accurate, it means both sides were allegedly engaged in a kind of parallel information war, each waiting to see how far the other would go before deploying whatever they had. That is not an organic beef. That is, allegedly, a strategy. Now here is the twist. The second public statement from E-Dog, which surfaced on social media in a form that several platforms described as a recorded video message rather than a live stream, giving it a more deliberate, produced quality, reportedly introduced a claim that had nothing to do with King Yella personally. Instead, E-Dog allegedly directed his most pointed comments at the broader machinery around the O-Block narrative, suggesting that there were people, again unnamed, who had been selectively releasing information about events surrounding King Von specifically to influence the outcome of ongoing legal and financial disputes. He did not say lawsuit. He did not say estate. But according to people who analyzed his statement closely, the implication was impossible to miss. Stay right here because it gets worse. Because if E-Dog's implication was pointing in the direction that most informed listeners believed it was pointing, toward the civil lawsuit filed by FBG Duck's mother Lashina Weekly, which named not just Lil Durk and King Von's estate but also multiple record labels and distributors, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars in potential liability, then what Yella and E-Dog were circling was not just street drama. It was allegedly a coordinated attempt to shape public perception at a moment when that public perception might matter in a court of law. That is a serious allegation. And to be absolutely clear, none of this has been proven. No court document confirms that either Yella's statements or E-Dog's response were connected to any legal strategy. What is confirmed is the timeline. Yella's initial clip went viral approximately 30 days before a scheduled court hearing in the Lashina Weekly lawsuit. Whether that timing is coincidence or coordination is something that reportedly, even people within the Chicago drill community have been arguing about in private group chats and closed forums for weeks. And here is what they allegedly did not want you to find out. Buried deep in the comment section of one of the earliest reposts of Yella's clip, a comment that was reportedly screenshotted and circulated before being deleted, was a message from an account that multiple users identified as belonging to someone with verified O-Block connections. That message allegedly read, "He know what he's doing. This ain't random." The account was subsequently deactivated or set to private within hours of the screenshot spreading. Whether that comment was authentic, planted, or simply a coincidence is unknown. But its timing, its content, and its rapid disappearance added one more layer of alleged coordination to a story that was already drowning in layers. This story began to unfold. The internet had already assigned its heroes and its villains. But what made the third act of the King Yella versus E-Dog situation genuinely different from dozens of similar Chicago drill social media feuds was not the volume of the conflict. It was the silence. Because after E-Dog's second statement, the recorded video message that allegedly pointed toward legal implications without saying the word lawsuit once, King Yella went quiet. Not for an hour. Not for a day. For what sources described as nearly 2 full weeks, Yella's social media presence dropped to near zero. No posts. No lives. No responses to the hundreds of people tagging him and demanding he answer E-Dog's allegations directly. That silence, reportedly, was louder than anything either man had said out loud. Because in the world of street credibility, where the speed and confidence of your response is often treated as evidence of your position, a 2-week silence after being directly challenged reads as one of two things. Either extreme strategic discipline or retreat. And the internet, which is merciless with ambiguity, split almost immediately on which interpretation was correct. But here is where it gets interesting one final time. Because while Yella was silent, the conversation around him was not. In fact, the absence of his voice arguably amplified the noise. Multiple respected voices within the Chicago drill commentary community, people with substantial followings and documented credibility on matters of O-Block history, began filling the vacuum with their own analysis. Some of that analysis supported Yella's original framing. Some of it challenged it. But a significant portion of it, according to what was publicly observable across YouTube, Instagram, and Platform X during that 2-week window, was focused on a question that neither Yella nor E-Dog had directly addressed. What does any of this mean for King Von's actual legacy? That is the question that sits at the center of everything. King Von died on November 6, 2020, outside of a hookah lounge in Atlanta, Georgia, after an altercation that resulted in multiple people being shot. He was 26 years old. In the nearly 5 years since his death, his music has continued to generate millions of streams. His posthumous album, What It Means to Be King, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, selling over 80,000 album-equivalent units in its first week. His YouTube channel has reportedly surpassed 1 billion total views. He is, by any commercial measure, one of the most impactful drill artists to have ever lived. And every single one of those numbers represents real money. Money that flows through an estate, through a label, through distribution deals, and through the kinds of contracts that end up in courtrooms when people disagree about who owns what. And this is the part that nobody is talking about. The Yella E-Dog conflict did not begin in a vacuum. It began, allegedly, because there are people who believe that the story of O-Block, and by extension the story of King Von, has been shaped, packaged, and sold in a way that serves specific interests over others. That is not a new critique in the music industry. Posthumous estates are one of the most legally and emotionally complex areas of entertainment law. They involve family members, former business partners, record labels, and in some cases, people who knew the artist in capacities that never made it onto any contract. When the money is large enough, and with King Von, the money is reportedly very large, the question of who controls the narrative becomes inseparable from the question of who controls the income. King Yella, whether intentionally or not, stepped into that space. And E-Dog, whether intentionally or not, stepped in right behind him. And what fans witnessed, allegedly, was not simply a beef between two Chicago men with history. It was a public collision between competing versions of a story that has hundreds of millions of dollars and a murdered young man's memory attached to it. That is not entertainment. That is, allegedly, a battle with real consequences for real people. Now here is the twist, the final one. When King Yella broke his silence, he did not do it with another bombshell claim. He did not produce the receipts that the internet had been demanding. He reportedly dropped a track, a song, music. And in that song, according to listeners who analyzed the lyrics closely, Yella allegedly encoded references to specific events, specific locations, and specific individuals in a way that gave him what one commentator described as plausible deniability wrapped in a verse. It is harder to sue someone over a metaphor than over a direct accusation. It is harder to fact-check a bar than a statement. And it is, allegedly, much easier to keep a story alive through music than through a live stream that can be deleted. E-Dog's response to the track, if there was a formal response, had not been confirmed at the time the script was finalized. What had been confirmed, according to fan accounts and commentary channels that track these stories in real time, was that the song generated significant discussion, that it had reportedly crossed 1 million streams within its first 72 hours, and that the comment sections beneath every analysis video were still weeks later, lit with debate, with loyalty, with grief, and with the kind of unresolved energy that does not dissipate. It just waits. Stay right here because it gets worse, and by worse, understand that what comes next is not a resolution. There is no clean ending to this story. Because the story of King Yella exposing O-Block secrets and E-Dog firing back is not really a story about two men. It is a story about what happens when the code of silence that held a community together for years starts to crack under the weight of money, legacy, legal pressure, and grief. It is a story about who gets to tell the truth, who profits from the telling, and who pays the price when the telling goes wrong. And it is a story that Chicago, and the broader drill community, has not finished writing. So here is where we leave you, and here is where it gets uncomfortable. Because you just watched this entire thing unfold, and there are still at least 3 questions that nobody has answered. First, What exactly did King Yella claim he knew? And does he have the proof to back it up? Or was this entire episode an elaborate piece of positioning designed to elevate his profile at someone else's expense? Second, if E-Dog's implied connection to the lawsuit timeline was intentional, who authorized that move? And what does it mean for the legal proceedings that are still reportedly in progress? And third, the one that might matter most, if King Von were alive right now, watching all of this play out across social media, across courtrooms, across posthumous albums and brand deals and street commentary channels, what do you think he would say? You tell me. Because you came here for the story, and you got the story. But the story does not end here. It never does with Chicago. It just moves underground for a while, and then it resurfaces when the pressure gets too high. And when it resurfaces next time, and it will resurface, you're going to want to have already been here for the full context. So if this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button right now. Not for the algorithm. Hit it because this story deserves attention, because there are real people attached to every single name mentioned here, and because the only way the full truth ever gets surfaced is when enough people refuse to let it get buried. Subscribe if you want to be in the room when the next chapter drops. And leave me one answer in the comments. Do you think King Yella is telling the truth? Or is this the most calculated move in Chicago Drill's recent history? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. Because at the end of the day, in Chicago, the streets always remember. The question is who gets to decide what they remember.